Scotty D, and this is an Epiphone Frontier FT110. The headstock broke, and I have a feeling the only thing holding it together is the truss rod cover. Let's take it off and see if it falls off. I'm pretty sure it's gonna. Such a pretty guitar. It's practically brand new. With a maple back and sides, mahogany neck, nice shading. She only had it for 7 weeks when this happened. And what happened was it was loaded up in its hard shell case. It was one of those molded, plastic type cases. And when it fell over and landed on the concrete, she opened up the case and here it was. And sure enough, the only thing holding it together was the screw. The little screws. Dear God. Okay. Yep, here we go again. Okay. Pulling the bushings. Sometimes they don't want to just press out on their own, so I help it along with a little clamp. Just like so. Try to center it over the bushing and it pops out just like that. Just removing the splinters. There's a little sideways one there. It's just better to remove it and we'll let the epoxy fill in the gaps. It's a very small piece. Yep. So I cleaned off both sides, and then you can see there's some larger bits that came off this side, but it was mostly fuzzies that came off this one. And then there's one real large piece that goes in. I'm going to glue that in first with some CA because that cures like right away, with some accelerator. And that piece goes right there. Well, I glued in that little piece with a little bit of the CA glue, accelerated it, and I'm ready to combine the two main parts together. I'm using the West Systems Marine Grade Epoxy. It's the 105 resin and the slow setting 206 hardener. It's a 5-to-1 ratio, so there's 6 parts total measured out on my scale, and I measure in grams. Then I mix it for a minute. And I decided on epoxy because I'm a member of the Luth group and I listen along all day long on my Zoom call. And I listen to the other guys talking about what they've used and what they have success with and what has failed them. And I know what's failed me and what I have success with too. And I just think more and more that this marine grade epoxy is the best bet when you're not doing any sort of additional reinforcements on the job, You'll see in my Fixing Headstocks playlist that I've used mahogany backstrap. I've used carbon fiber wraps around the backside or profile side of the neck. I've also used splines, carbon fiber and mahogany wood splines. I think maple wood splines are a good bet, though, actually, compared to mahogany. So I slathered on a thin layer of the original mixture, and then I added a little bit of a thickener That was the colloidal silica, which gives me a little bit more of a thicker resin that I'm going to drop in just across the middle here where I had a couple missing pieces of wood. I picked them out because they were loose anyways. And the loose wood just causes weaknesses. May as well just get rid of it and fill in all the voids with this two-part epoxy. And we're going to see here that it's a really slow setting epoxy. It gives me hours to clean it up and just tons of time to get it clamped, make sure that it's not sliding around. I can come back in a little while and check on things and make adjustments if needed. But first thing, I'm going to wipe up the majority of that squeeze out here on the back side. I'll take a really flat caul that I've waxed up with some paste wax. I've got the old Johnson's paste wax, and I've also got some of this new Varathane stuff. And this makes sure that the two pieces stay in alignment, at least on the headstock surface. Next thing I'll do is I'll add a couple extra clamps, not so much to apply pressure, but to apply weight. I want to make sure the headstock is pushing down on the neck, pushing the two parts together, using gravity as a clamp. And the extra weight of these little bar clamps gives me that extra weight to help along in the process. You can see the squeeze out here. I'll take a Q-tip moistened with naphtha, wipe it up and smudge it around, and it leaves such a thin layer that it'll wipe right up with naphtha later on, next day. You really don't need to leave it overnight, but I do. I flip it around so that some of the weight is tipping the headstock into that back. Like the headstock has it's angled backwards at 15 to 18 degrees. So I'll use that as a help too, and I'll set my timer to come back in a little while and check on the epoxy that's in the cup. You can still see here that it's got quite a bit of flexibility left in it, but it's starting to thicken. So I'll do a quick little wipe. But I will also come back in another half hour and check again. See if there's any more squeeze out. And I'm actually going to take all the clamps off in a little while here and clean up the headstock face. The headstock veneer is going to have a little squeeze out that's squeezing and it's pushing up against that MDF caul. So here we are. This is a full hour later. It's hardening. We don't want to wait any longer to wipe up the headstock face itself, because I would rather take a few extra minutes to remove all the clamps and the caul, clean it up now rather than have to chip it off later, because it's not just going to wipe up tomorrow. It's going to be so hard. I'd have to grind it off, and that'll end up causing me to have to do a whole bunch more finish repairs. God knows we don't want to do more finish repairs. We want to do the least amount of work possible. Not because we're lazy, not because we're greedy and we need to make a lot of money, but because we've got a lot of other guitars waiting for servicing. And if you're curious, I don't just do restoration work. I do maintenance work all day long, every day. String changes, neck adjustments, setups, cleaning and polishing. So I'm using naphtha. Actually, it works better to use acetone, but you don't want to get in the habit of using acetone all the time, because next thing you know, you'll be wiping acetone on a guitar that's finished would wipe right off with the acetone. So I use naphtha instead. So I got some good news about the weather and my plan for finishing off this finish on the guitar. The weather has changed. We got, late summer here, and instead of that 100+ degree with super high humidity, we've got a really nice, like, the high is going to be only 80 degrees today, and I can finish this off with some flat lacquer, because this is not a super gloss finish. Maybe satin. Actually, probably flat. I can spray the flat and finish it off with some Scotch-Brite pads, I think, to match this existing sheen. And it's high humidity out there regardless. It's only about 27 degrees Celsius today, which is a far cry from what it was a few weeks ago when I couldn't spray lacquer at all. And the reason I couldn't is because once I put on my protective gear, my mask steams up because of the high temperatures. So this is going to be great. Just do some real minor touch-ups here to this crack up here. Prep up the whole surface, tape off the fretboard, and then we'll take it on down. I've got the dehumidifier going already, and then we'll be spraying. I'm just going to see how much of this crack the truss rod covers or sits on top of. The worst part of it's going to be covered up. That's cool. But still, it's going to look horrible if I just leave it like this. So I'm going to scuff, I'm going to sand. I'm going to fill, and then I'm going to sand again. Then I'm going to scuff again. I'm going to scuff the whole thing. I'm going to paint it. Look at this total vise. I can get the headstock at the perfect angle to work at. This is a great working angle right here. And I've got my bench right next to it, so I've got all the stuff I need. I'll start dropping in some glue boost, fill and finish thin. I want to fill the voids. I don't think it's going to help too much structurally, but it'll definitely look a lot better if I get a nice level surface to spray over top of. Now, if it wasn't in the budget, we could just be done with the job right now, reassemble it, put the bushings back in, put the tuners back on. But she wants her guitar to, look kind of like it used to. You don't want to look at every time you look at your guitar, you don't want to see and be reminded of the horrific event of getting smashed or broken, dropped. Remember, we play the guitar with our eyes. This is the little chip that I glued back in with the super glue, the CA glue. That little oval shape right there. Kind of looks like Lake Titicaca. It's starting not to look like caca. All right. That's looking pretty good. Naphtha to clean. You guys brush your teeth, I brush my headstock. To each his own. All right, this is the Milwaukee Inksol pen. Inksol does it all. I'm not going to leave it looking like this. I'm just getting a head start. Next, I put in some black glue boost. Fill and finish black for you. Fill and finish black is where it's at. Then I sand it again. I think this looks pretty good. For the neck side, I mixed dirty amber stain with red mahogany stain. It was probably like a 10-to-1, dirty amber to red mahogany. And if you're curious what dirty amber is, I'll tell you. But first, I'll tell you why I'm scrubbing the entire headstock face with this Scotch-Brite Maroon. It's because I'm going to spray the entire area, and poly finishes need some tooth. So the new finish can grab onto these little teeth that I left right there, these little scouring marks. It needs a mechanical bond is what I'm telling you. But anyways. Okay, Dirty Amber is a color that I mix, and it's golden brown and vintage amber. I don't always like using vintage amber because it's too yellow. So I add a little golden brown, and it's probably half and half. Now, this is a good example of a bad camera angle. One, I had my arm in the way. Two, I got all the light coming in from behind the project. So let me just move the camera so that it's up against the garage door. Now, isn't that better? Right now I'm spraying black. I masked off the Headstock logo and sprayed in this Mohawk flat black. This is lacquer. I also taped off the edges of the headstock. And this is a half hour later. I'm peeling off the tape. Half hour after spraying the black. Of course, I taped off the fretboard because I didn't want it getting black. And I taped off the nut and the binding. So the fretboard, nut, and binding and edges, I taped them all off so they wouldn't get black. Then I peeled off what I wanted to go over top of with clear, and that is it. That's the flat clear. It's called Ultra Bond. Ultra Flow Mohawk Flat Lacquer. Here's the application of the flat lacquer, which I noticed most of it just got on my car. Okay. I let it rest overnight. Brought her back up to the studio where we'll disrobe her of her angel gown. And we'll peel off the tape. We'll reinstall the bushings. I like to use a quick grip clamp. If they don't press in with a quick grip, we need to modify the hole. And that usually happens when the headstock breaks across one of the holes and the epoxy gets in there, or the glue squeezes out into the hole. Didn't have any of that kind of thing going on with this one. All the break happened below the tuners on this one. This is the String Tech workstation. It holds the guitar in this position where the headstock is horizontal. That helps me with repositioning the tuners and reinstalling the tuner screws. There's another good example of a bad camera angle. As you know, I didn't go to filmmaking school. So I try to get my hand in the way as much as possible. It's a good looking hand though. That's a little better. The DeWalt gyroscopic screwdriver. Now I'll tighten the truss rod. Just guessing. I checked the voltage on the battery. We're good. 9.04 volts. Next, I'll reinstall the truss rod cover, which luckily for us covers most of the ugliness that's left behind. I think when she looks at her guitar, she'll be reminded that it broke, and she might also be reminded to be very careful. I like to tell people to never use a hanger that holds the guitar by its head after it's been broken this way and compromised. I also tell them to detune their E and A string one full step. Oh boy, is this bridge dry. We'll rehydrate it with some Howard's Feedin' Wax. I highly recommend Howard's Feedin' Wax. It's got beeswax and linseed oil and other good stuff that smells awesome. If it smells good and tastes good, it's gotta be good. But yeah, the other thing I tell them is to tune the A and the E down. Tune the E to a D and tune the A to a G before you put it in your case. Even if you're just going across town, take some of the tension off the headstock. That's gonna be a lifelong thing. Ever since, as long as this guitar is still this guitar, you might not even want to travel with it at all. You might want to just leave this guitar at home and enjoy it as your couch guitar or your living room guitar. I have a guitar in every room. What's the sense in moving a guitar from room to room when you could just have 5, 6 guitars, one in every room, even the bathroom? Just kidding. Anyways, I'm gonna string this up with 10 through 47 80-20 bronze. The 80-20 bronze are those ones that look more like brass. They're a little bit harder and they're a little bit brighter, but they don't have quite the corrosion resistance as the phosphor bronze. Phosphor, that little bit of phosphor they put in there actually prevents corrosion slightly. They'll still corrode if you don't wash your hands. Let's listen to her.
Feel so happy, feel so fine. My love is lady, always on my mind. Feel loving every night and day. I never don't leave it, never throw it away. Makes me feel happy. Love me to the end of time. Someone love me. No, she makes me feel alright. Hey guys, I appreciate you hanging around this week. If you like these Fixin' Headstocks videos, I'll put a link below so you can go to the playlist and watch them all. We'll catch you later.